Welcome to Tonetalks. Welcome to Tonetalks. Welcome to Tonetalks. Framing discussion. So this is Attorney Antonio Moore here to talk about what Whoopi Goldberg said, to frame Whoopi Goldberg, to explain how ignorant what she said is, and how she just doesn't understand the economics of America. She just doesn't understand much at all to me. Let's get to it. So Whoopi Goldberg told everyone that Gen Z and millennials that the reason they can't get the housing ladder is because they only want to work 4 hours a day. Now, where she got that from, I don't know. But part of the problem is you have a Whoopi Goldberg speaking, and her name ain't Whoopi Goldberg, and she's a high school dropout. And nobody frames that around the reality, meaning her birth name isn't Whoopi Goldberg. So who am I listening to should be the first question. The problem is that you guys have allowed celebrity to be some form of academic achievement that it ain't. I need to talk today because Whoopi Goldberg done told y'all wrong. Now, we've talked about it for years, about the reality of the privileges and benefits that boomers have got. I just talked about last show. So you'll have your grandparents who have a house go down to the city and try to petition so they don't have to pay property tax. So then the schools and the potholes the schools are underserved and the potholes are big, but it's because we want to say they on a fixed income. No, you bought a house, pay your goddamn property tax. But then when it comes to student loans, you need to be responsible. Hold on. Whoopi Goldberg tells Gen Z and millennials that the reason they can't get on the housing ladder is because they only want to work 4 hours a day. So we're going to talk about the realities of what boomers did here. They entirely failed politically. They have made it so like they're going to have a retirement and the world is going to be around for them. But like for us, they have largely failed us outside of a few people who are boomer hooked to a specific boomer. But as a generation, we have an 80-year-old president. How many people know how that Bill Clinton was in his 40s when he first ran for president? He wasn't 80. That's how selfish the moment is. I want to talk to you today, meaning Biden. Biden is 80, about this. This is where it has to start because it's not just that she's a dropout. It's also about when she dropped out and what she missed and how, as a result, she has no idea what she's talking about. Now, I'm not saying that somebody who in the 50s dropped out of high school, became a farmer, or became part of let's say the local trains and joined the union, they didn't have a right to speak. What I'm saying is this woman that's a high school dropout and many of these black celebrities, empty, in my view. It is really crazy for a high school dropout to ramble this way about people that in many cases finished college into an America collapsed due to self-serving boomer policy done by her and her contemporaries. Whoopi Goldberg, high school dropout. And again, we're talking about Whoopi Goldberg tells Gen Z and millennials that the reason they can't get on the housing ladder is because they only want to work 4 hours a week. Let's play that clip so everybody can get to it.
Millennials and Gen Z have a much different view of the American dream than past generations. Data shows that soaring inflation, student debt, and limited room for advancement in the workplace has made them feel that milestones like affording a home, starting a family, excelling within the corporate structure are out of reach. Does every generation feel this way at some point? I say yes. Every generation comes and wants to do better than their parents did. Every generation. But I'm sorry, if you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house. If you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house.
Oh, and don't mention...
We busted our behinds. We had to bust our behinds because we didn't have the option
Y'all gave
of going
us the housing
back.
crisis.
So you have a Whoopi Goldberg, whose birth name isn't Whoopi Goldberg, and who also is a high school dropout, and we'll get into when she dropped out, telling us about what every generation did. By what academic experience do you know what generations did? You dropped out of high school. So how and when would you have learned these things that you're speaking to? Oh, she learned it in life. No. Slowing it down, this woman, this particular woman, and we'll talk about who this woman is in a second. Karen Elaine Johnson has no expertise to be speaking on the politics of this nation, the realities of race, economics, generational struggles, because she don't have the expertise. What am I saying? What am I saying? Come on. We're going to get to it today because a lot of y'all favorite hero about to get cut down. She on that show rambling, speaking to a largely white female home audience that is boomer and that is great gen sitting at home living on the luxuries of not having to deal with driving Uber. And the realities of Obama putting that there when millennials got of age, as Gen Z comes of age. I need to talk today. But when you miss high school, what do you miss? You miss 3 years in English. You miss 2 years in math. You miss 2 years in science. You miss 3 years in social sciences, including U.S. history and geography, world history, culture. You miss 1 course in visual and performing arts. You miss 2 courses in physical education. But let's go back to this U.S. history, because you have a woman who dropped out of high school telling us about what generational struggles existed and what each generation did. She doesn't understand FDR. Didn't go to high school. She does not grasp the context of generational struggles and what happened post-civil rights and the FHA and how wealth has changed and how more wealth was being taken home. See, I need you guys to understand how ignorant what this woman is saying is before I even get into what the boomers did. They basically set the boomers up to succeed. Massive labor movements had finally set in their place. You had the civil rights movement allow blacks into doors that they were never allowed into. You had wealth being taken back from, and we've talked about this with the Diallo chart, from the top 1%. So basically, when you look at that Diallo chart that we brought up, and I'll bring it up in the final version, it shows that the amount of wealth being taken home by the 1% now is like during the Depression. But during the height of when boomers came of age, America, government had decided to take it back from the rich and hand it to the working class. That's how you got your house, Whoopi. But you different. You different. You the one dropped out of high school. Hold on, talking about hard work. It really is crazy for a high school dropout to ramble this way. And part of the reason I did this show is to make sure, because so many of y'all don't know, when these celebrities are high school dropouts, that she's a high school dropout. And she didn't learn any of this. Well, the question would become, when did she drop out of high school? Well, according to this, she went and spoke at a college, and what she said, despite her successes, Goldberg told the graduates they had done something she didn't. School was not for me, she said, explaining that she is dyslexic and is a 9th grade dropout. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So all high school dropouts aren't even built the same. Let's say you get all the way to the end of high school and you didn't finish a few classes, you get in a fight or whatever, and you in 12th grade, but you did most of the classes. That's a different kind of dropout than somebody who dropped out in 9th grade. So if you dropped out in 9th grade, I'm going to get to it because you missed all of this. All of this. 3 courses in social science, including U.S. history and geography. So a lady who dropped out in 9th grade is telling a generation of people who may have went to college, who may have went to law school, who may have went to medical school, and cannot afford housing because of bad politics, both racially and economically, that they didn't work hard and that they only want to work 4 hours a week. Now that you know that, let's play this again.
Millennials and Gen Z have a much different view of the American dream than past generations. Data shows that soaring inflation, student debt, and limited room for advancement in the workplace has made them feel that milestones like affording a home, starting a family, excelling within the corporate structure are out of reach. Does every generation feel this way at some point? I say yes. Every generation comes and wants to do better than their parents did. Every generation. But I'm sorry, if you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house. If you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house. Oh, and don't mention, we busted our behinds. We had to bust our behinds because we didn't have the option of going back.
Y'all gave us the housing crisis.
We who dropped out of high school in ninth grade is telling us about the history of America, and ain't nobody saying nothing. A woman whose name is Whoopi Goldberg, but her birth name was an Adolf's name. And I'll tell you why she changed it in a second, but we not even calling her right name. We got to stop calling these people by their stage names. Her name is Karen Johnson. You are Karen Johnson, lady. Lord. So Karen Johnson done told us, meaning Whoopi Goldberg, that we don't work hard enough. That we only want to work 4 hours a week. We talking about 40-year-old people getting up driving Uber after they do a full-time job teaching, and she sitting on top of this luxury life from being hooked into boomers and selling white people a post-racialism through the decadent veil. What do I mean? So when you change your name to Whoopi Goldberg, you are signaling a post-racialism that did not happen in this country, whether you know it or not. You are cueing that you will be the one to represent a kind of mixing of races that did not happen in this country, a mixing of wealth that did not happen in this country. Karen, Elaine. Whoopi Goldberg tells Gen Z and millennials that the reason they can't get on the housing ladder is because they only want to work 4 hours a day. Now, 310-388-3499 to call in if you want to speak on it. But I'm going to keep going. Whoopi Goldberg, a baby boomer with an estimated $60 million in net worth, thinks the American dream is out of reach for young people because they simply aren't working hard enough. Whoopi Goldberg, the high school dropout. So I believe that every time they present her and she's doing some kind of representation of academic information, they should also have to list high school dropout. So we list that she's, understand the Forbes article, it'll say that what she make. It'll say that she's a celebrity. But what it won't say is the key element, which is she's a high school dropout. So we can put it in the right category. And I'm doing this show so you guys continuously hear me say Whoopi Goldberg is a high school dropout. Somebody asked, what did she say that wasn't true? Everything. God. I'll talk about it in a second because we've done shows. You got to go watch the old shows. So I can't teach you what she said. That first of all, what she said isn't anchored anywhere because she dropped out of high school. So in high school, you learn U.S. history like in 10th and 11th grade. She missed that. She dropped out in 9th grade. And also that's the problem with like saying tour, not true. Let's read some more of this article that came out on Forbes. We've heard the actual representation. With soaring inflation, huge student debt, and a housing crisis on their hands, Gen Z and millennials feel like they've got it harder than the generation before them. But the actress Whoopi Goldberg disagrees. She thinks the American dream is out of reach for youngsters simply because they're not working hard enough. The Oscar-winning actress dismissed the idea that it's harder for younger generations to bag a high-paying gig, buy a house, and start a family on Wednesday's episode of The View. Goldberg, a boomer with an estimated $60 million net worth, hit back that Gen Z and millennials just don't bust their behinds quite like her generation had to. I'm sorry if you only had to want to work 4 hours a week. It's going to be harder for you to 4 hours a day is what she references. It's going to be harder for you to get a house. I don't think she understands that boomers were working 8 hours a day and then they were getting overtime. Millennials and Gen Zs are driving Uber unprotected because you guys elected Barack Obama, who allowed only 2 months after he was nominated into office for Uber and gig jobs to actually become legal. You don't know that? That's not even getting into housing and property tax. You don't know that, Whoopi? Oh, yeah, you're a high school dropout. So before Barack Obama and Tom Perez, literally only a month and a half after he was sworn in, they found and launched Uber. Before that, you couldn't use 1099 that way. So jobs had to pay workers, and they had to give vacation, and they had to give. And if you weren't a worker and you were 1099, you were truly 1099. They didn't kind of control you and kind of 1099 you because that wasn't allowed. And you damn sure didn't have cities trying to do 1099. If a city employed you, you had a good job. Oh no, you got cities trying to use the same gigification that came out through Obama. But you wouldn't know that. And part of the reason you wouldn't know that is because you didn't do U.S. history. And you didn't do geography and world history and culture and American government and civics. I want to talk today. Goldberg's millennial co-host Alyssa Farr quickly responded by recounting the difficulties that her generation is facing. Far too often, what we do is, and it's right, the answer is talk about the problem. No, answer me. Who are you? Who's talking to me right now? What grade did you finish? Grandma, what grade did you finish? Before you're talking a lot. I just want to make sure. What's the last book you read all the way through? You're talking to me a lot. When's the last time you went down to the city council and actually changed the way the streets are set up?
William Victor, North Carolina.
Give me a take. I'm all right. Give me a take on it.
My take is I wanted that name. When we think about how she used the fact to change her name, and we know what it means. We know our anchoring in this country a lot of times is our name. When we think, you have talked about this before, being careful who we elevate in spaces. And knowing stuff like this in the beginning, to nip it in the book, she took that name and changed it completely to something else, was the first sign that more than likely she won't with us. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That she was in this, that do exactly what she did that day on that stage was to undermine our suffering, our feet suffering. So, like we did the O&B, we had people that.
Wait, let me tell everybody what the OMB is. Let me tell everybody what the OMB is.
Okay.
So for those people that come into the show and be like, y'all don't have no solutions. No. We on another level than any black person doing politics in America. So what do I mean? And I'm saying we, meaning ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, the foundation, the movement that me and Yvette founded. We have presented to the Office of Management and Budget, the U.S. government, to add a category called American Descendants of Slavery to capture better data, to allow for more programs, to allow for more focus on those families that come from American slavery. So when people come to us and just see the show, they don't understand the work. Go ahead.
Exactly, so. And that's what I keep telling people, the ability to connect these dots and anchor this conversation into something makes all the difference. So when we did that O&B comment and people were calling in, I read your comment, I read Yvette comment, and I read your name on that comment. We had people in that session that don't understand and could not connect the dots. That the fact we stood on our square in that O&B, some people was throwing nicknames, not saying names. People that knew what they was talking about, like you and Yvette, you anchored that conversation and you said your name. These names mean everything.
Come on.
It's people that are cross-playing us because they ain't exposing their name. And we know it. You're showing it right here with Whoopi Goldberg right now.
I didn't see her on the OMB. Caller, I'm going to let you go and take another caller.
Okay.
Come on, caller. That was powerful. I didn't see Whoopi Goldberg on the OMB. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, what's up, Tonetalks? This is D-Thought.
Give me your talk.
Oh, okay. So, Tone, I'm going to be real quick, man. First, I want to give credence to you, brother. I took my son to the first ADOS conference in Louisville. We still have that picture. And, brother, you are incredibly brilliant. You're a brilliant brother. I have to watch your shows 3-4 times to get all of the nuggets that you put in there. Now, here's my comment. My comment is that I teach here in Cleveland, Ohio. I teach at a community college. So the problem with Whoopi Goldberg and all these boomers is that they are not around young people and they don't know their life. I can tell you that my students, they have 3, 4, some of them have 3 jobs. So they're going to school full-time and they're working 3 jobs. So that thing about the 4 hours, that's ludicrous. Then the last thing is that I think that we can do, I'm a Gen Xer. What we can do is testify. If the boomers don't tell their story, we have to tell our story, tell their story and be courageous. I'm going to use my dad really quickly as an example. My dad graduated high school and he got a job in Birmingham, Alabama at American Cast Iron Pipe Company.
Come on.
He was able to take care of myself and my 3 siblings, and not only was he able to make an income of $60,000 as well, just in the
in that money,
$60,000, but he was also, the company took care of him. They had a medical
Come on.
that my dad still benefits from.
Can I add one more? Can I ask you one more thing before you? I'm guessing guessing the houses in that community might have been 45,000 or something like that, right?
Actually, Tony, I have a number for you on that. My dad paid $36,000 for a 3-bedroom home in that community.
So let's frame that. Let's frame that. So he's making 60 with a high school education, able to take care of all his kids and his wife, and understand this. Let's add one more thing. Just about it's it's 36, but 2-time multiplier. So he can pay for almost 2 houses in 1 year. Whereas in LA, the medium home is 800,000. So if you make 100,000, that's 8 times multiplier, and the interest rate is 9%. Come on, let's go. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Tone, one last thing, brother. I know you gotta go. One last thing with my father and the generations of those things. You're absolutely right. It was time. And so when we look at that post-war era, the 1945 to about 1975, that 30-year period would have been the time, because I had relatives that moved from Alabama to Cleveland. They were able to get jobs in the factory, and we know the Great Migration. That people left from Alabama, Mississippi to go to Detroit to work in Ford Motor Factory. Those jobs are gone. Cleveland is de-industrialized. There's nothing here for the young people to do. Now, they migrated. Now, what are they going to do? They're doing the jobs that you said, Cole. They're doing Uber Eats. They're driving their cars. And I have students that they're coming in, Tony, they're like crying. They're like, I don't see no way out of this. So I just want to share that, brother. And you keep doing what you're doing, brother. I'm going to continue to support you. And you are an incredible intellect. You are the intellect of our generation. You talked about W.E.B. Du Bois. You doing Du Bois work, Dr. King. Keep it up, brother.
Thank you so much. Let me try to get this on screen. So what do we got to go through? Well, for those people that have watched this show, they've seen this chart. What Whoopi Goldberg, when she says this ignorance here about, Whoopi Goldberg tells Gen Z and millennials that the reason they can't get on the housing ladder is because they only want to work 4 hours a day, does not understand it. She's a 9th grade dropout, so she doesn't know the generations. She's speaking just from her idea. But when you actually have charting to show the generations, it says that you're wrong, Karen, meaning Whoopi, the Whoopi cushion. So this chart was done by Ray Diallo, one of the richest men in America and in the world, of course. And what I did is I added the colors so that we could talk about it in the racial context. And what this chart shows is how wealth was shared during the prime of boomers' lives, before the prime of boomers' lives, before, during, and now during our lives. And how wealth is shared reflects in your ability to accrue and get assets and actually have a quality middle-class life. Because if all the wealth is with the top 1 to 5% of white people, you ain't gonna have no good life. And that comes as a result of policy. Can we talk today? Can we get past the ignorance told to us by a high school dropout? So we get, because people are coming in and saying, what did she say wrong? Well, she said everything wrong, because the history don't say what she's saying. So let's look at this thing. Green line is the share of U.S. wealth held by the top 0.1%. So they held, this is the chart that shows that they held like 20% of the wealth. And then also the bottom 90 is the red line, held about 20% of the wealth back in the Depression, during the Depression. That's when they crossed. As a result, all of this policy started happening where we have to create a middle class, FHA loans, labor unions, all kind of protections. The civil rights movement eventually around here. And what that did is it created an avenue where by the time we get to around 85, the prime of boomers' lives, the bottom 90 is taking home not 20%, 35% of the wealth. And the top 0.1 has been broken down by policy and government, where they're only taking home 5%. It is a celebration of the everyman. It is how we got Dr. King. Come on. It is how and why I can't give you no politics, because they're going to block my channel. My channel's at 85,000. It's been there 2 years. You ask yourself how we got there. I believe this is one of the most powerful racial channels in the nation. Teaching you guys about wealth in a way nobody is, all the economists included. Now, when you look at the yellow I put in the middle, the current Black psyche is based on a time of wealth sharing. You guys are talking about your grandmama like you live here when the wealth is increasing for the bottom 90, but you live here like your great-great-grandmama during the Depression, and your grandmama, come on, let's tie it all together. She can't tell you nothing. Why? Because they were raised after the war, meaning boomers, and so they have no real experience of trauma or the Great Depression or any deprivation. You would have to go talk to your great-great-grandmama. More importantly, they never experienced the social solidarity that unfolded during the war that helped create the New Deal. So you are listening to someone selling you an age they didn't come up in. We struggled. You tell that to this chart. Well, all of a sudden, the man just told you his daddy was making 2 times the price of a house in 1 year with a high school diploma, probably working regular hours. But then in addition, I told older family members, Obama is Kenyan and white. He will deliver you nothing. I told them to vote down ballot Democrat. They told me they wanted to celebrate blackness. In 2007, what he did in 2008, less than 2 months into office, is gave you gig jobs. And now, 15 years later, 12 years later, we have nothing to show for it but gig jobs. And you want to act like you are okay while you retire for 25 years and gonna leave me with a child who will have to work a gig job set up. Somebody just said millennials aren't kids, and you're absolutely right. They're full adults with no retirement, sometimes not even having housing, no life insurance often, struggling because of a bad set of politics. Goldberg's millennial co-host, Alyssa Farr, quickly responded by recounting the difficulties that our generation is facing, from holding off having children because it's so expensive to having a lot to live with their parents well into adulthood. Y'all gave us the housing crisis. Farr hit out at boomers. I feel for everybody that feels this, but I'm sorry, we busted our behinds. Goldberg doubled down on her stance. Okay. Every generation is told they're going to do worse than their parents. People pick it up and do what they know. Government did it for you. Government created a world where they could not do gig jobs. They created a world where they gave you retirement, a world of labor unions. Let me give you an example, since you're just a high school dropout. A few years ago, Whoopi Goldberg, they had a Supreme Court decision that came down, and I'm going to summarize it just for quick information for the audience. And it entirely changed the way unions operate. So it used to be you get hired by, say, the district attorney's office or the public defender's office, and they automatically could include you in the union. You had to pay your fees. You didn't know that they was in your interest to be part of that union. Well, now they gave you an option to opt out. And it's gutting labor unions across America. I need people to understand why it's important to ask who is talking to you. Then you can move to the problem. I understand that Whoopi is a problem, and you are right. But she represents an ethos of ignorance that we have not been willing to stand up to. What's the point of going off to UCLA or to Howard or to Stanford if when you come home, you're going to let somebody speak ignorance to you? Well, she older, she knows something. Well, this is what she did know. How many people know how she got her name? In the chat, 310-388-3499, if you want to give your opinion. How many people know how she got her name? Well, it's right here. The Broadway revival of A Funny Thing happened on the way to the Forum in February, told an interviewer that she indeed named herself after a whoopee cushion. So we are listening to a Black woman, it's ADOS, I believe, that took a first name after a whoopee cushion. How do you think white executives, white producers digested her knowing that about her and digested you as a representation of you? I'm seeing that people didn't even know. That's why she named herself that. That's why it's important to start off with, like, who am I listening to? Because a lot of you guys are allowing people that are not the sharpest tool in the shed to speak for you because they've been around a long time. So she dropped out in 9th grade, and then she renamed herself after a whoopee cushion. Wait, what about her last name? And that's where the name came from. Whoopi's mother thought that a Jewish surname would get her further in Hollywood, so she replaced Johnson and Goldberg with Goldberg. Let me say it again. And that's where the name came from. Somebody said I didn't know. Whoopi's mother thought that a Jewish surname would get her further in Hollywood, so she replaced Johnson with Goldberg. So we are listening to a 9th grade dropout that changed her ADOSness out for Goldberg because she thought having a Jewish name would get her further. That also changed her first name from a name her mama gave her to Whoopi Cushion. A woman that is calling black, white millennials that work hard, that try to survive in a world that has massive inflation, that doesn't make much sense unless you're a boomer and got hooked in the 80s or you hooked to one. Because we are in a new time of where money ain't cheap no more. Whoopi Goldberg in her youth struggled with learning, labeled dumb and lazy. So while she got labeled, see, I feel like what we're looking at is much deeper. It is a deep trauma. So while she got
Millennials
labeled
and Gen
dumb and
Z
lazy,
have a much different view of the
now call
American
us that,
dream
basically.
than past generations. Data shows that soaring inflation, student debt, and limited room for advancement in the workplace has made them feel that milestones like affording a home, starting a family, excelling within the corporate structure are out of reach. Does every generation feel this way at some point? I say yes. Every generation comes and wants to do better than their parents did. Every generation. But I'm sorry, if you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house. If you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house. Oh, and don't mention, we busted our behind.
What she's basically doing is parroting the messages of particularly the right, white conservative, to garner audience. And I think it's so deep she might not even know that's what she's doing. You don't have enough anchoring in the everyday lives of people who kept the name Karen Elaine, who kept their last name Johnson, who worked hard for 40 years on a train or in a nurse as a nurse or as a post office to be speaking for them. All I know is that when you were young, people called you dumb and lazy. And I'm hearing that kind of the tone of it out of your mouth now about millennials that did far more than you to me. Whoopi Goldberg speaks up about dyslexia back in 2016. The actress remembers the period before she was diagnosed when people around her were suspected she was just lazy or not trying in school. We are dealing with a social collapse. And somebody needs to tell this woman in as basic a way as she understands that maybe you don't understand enough to be speaking on a topic and giving such definitive answers when you didn't get 10th grade civics lessons on the structure of government. We need to understand Karen Elaine Johnson to understand Whoopi Goldberg. Born November 13th, 1955. I hope she see this on her birthday. Known professionally as Whoopi Goldberg, is an American actor, comedian, author, and television personality. A recipient of numerous accolades, she is one of 18 entertainers to win the EGOT. Goldberg began her career in 1983 with her one-woman show, Spook Show, which transferred to Broadway under the title Whoopi Goldberg. So Whoopi Cushion with a fake surname is the name that she was doing a show under, running from 84 to 85. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I mean, I just need you guys to understand how crazy this is, because again, Despite her successes, Goldberg told the graduates they had done something she didn't. School was not for me, she said, explaining that she is dyslexic and is a 9th grade dropout. Well, the people that speak to this, school, it was for them. We need people whose school was for them to talk about this, because then they'll have an anchoring. Net worth is $60 million purportedly, and she makes $8 million on this View. She's been on there since 2001. But I need to teach today, first of all, Whoopi Goldberg, but second of all, the boomers in the class right now, and third of all of y'all listening overall, regardless of race. You can go get this as a Vox article, but I've talked about it. I've used charts. I've shown you guys. But this article kind of frames how ignorant what she said is. How the baby boomers, not millennials, screwed America. The boomers inherited a rich, dynamic country and have gradually bankrupted it. Can we get into it today? Everyone likes to bash millennials. We're spoiled, entitled, and hopelessly glued to our smartphones. We demand participation trophies, can't find jobs, and live with our parents until we're 30. You know the punchlines by now. But is the millennial hate justified? Have we dropped the generational baton, or was it previous generations, the so-called baby boomers, who actually ruined everything? That's the argument Bruce Gibney makes in his 2017 book, A Generation of Sociopaths, how the baby boomers betrayed America. The boomers, according to Gibney, have committed generational plunder, pillaging the nation's economy, repeatedly cutting their own taxes, financing 2 wars. So what do I mean? For all of you guys that have been through this, what I'm saying is that you'll have a set of boomers, your grandparents, and they live in the community, and their kids graduated, but they still got grandkids. They'll want their property tax to be fixed. No, you live in a house that appreciates. Let's fix the value of that house, because the neighborhood, the community, the city dies without property taxes. Hold on. So what you go down is you go down to the board, and you go down and you sit there and you say, well, I'm on a fixed income. I can't pay property tax. It shouldn't be for people over 65. But you still own the house. Utterly irresponsible. You still got grandkids too. But then somebody single that don't got no kids got to pay extra parking tickets or extra speeding tickets because the city then taxes him or her for the fact that you didn't do the work. Hold on. Let's use another example. School was damn near free for you in many of these states. But what you did is you didn't do any politics to make sure the states continued to make school free for your children and for your grandchildren. Then you didn't save enough money so your children or your grandchildren were outside of the system and could use your money to pay off their loans, to pay off their tuition. So now when they got student loans, you tell them that they're irresponsible, but it really was you. That's just 2 examples. There's hundreds, if not thousands. Pillaging the nation's economy, generational plunder, is what he is saying that the boomers did. I need you to understand that. People will be like, why are you attacking the boomers? Well, the context of this is Whoopi Goldberg saying that millennials only work 4 hours and basically they're lazy. Committed generational pillaging the nation's economy, repeatedly cutting their own taxes, financing 2 wars with deficit, ignoring climate change, presiding over the death of America's manufacturing core, and leaving future generations to clean up the mess they created. So how many boomers been retired 25 years? You got grandbabies. Can we talk? You got grandbabies. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, this is Vaughn from Detroit. Hey, I got a homeless cousin who's been begging on the streets for some time. I've been in the middle class for almost 25 or 30 years. I know nothing of my cousin's lifestyle, but Whoopi Goldberg has been rich since the 80s. So she has no concept of what the middle class goes through. That's something she should be speaking on. She got to get an advisor to explain to her, or a right winger to come up with something for her to have an idea what the middle class or the poor does. All like that.
And let me say something else to you. When you are someone like this, all you can do is speak anecdotally. You can speak anecdotally. My one experience. You don't get to play expert about what the generations did and everything. I have no idea what the she's talking about. This lady is a high school dropout. That disqualified you from being an expert on history. You don't know enough. Like, oh, God, it's just, I mean, the gravity with which the failure of even this statement and her being the vessel of it is insane. You drop out in 9th grade, you're going to tell us about U.S. history. You don't know nothing about civics. Well, I learned it along the way. We don't want learned it along the way people. We got enough Harvard, Stanford, UCLA grads to learn from them. Bring them on, let them talk, and you just sit there. But we've been letting you ramble so long that we done forgot your name came from a whoopee cushion. Christopher, I believe that that's only part. This is the view. She be up there just saying stuff. You can tell by the way the rest of the people responded. I doubt that they even knew she was going to say that. It's quite insane to me, Michael. Got her name from a whoopee cushion and her mama saying, well, we're going to get away from that Adolphs. We're just going to call ourselves Goldberg because we're going to get further. Thank you so much, James. 310-388-3499. If you want to voice your opinion, I want to hear from some of the ladies on this Whoopi Goldberg. North, call in, let us know what you think about this Whoopi Goldberg or Princess. I know it's early on a Sunday, but I'm hearing people not really able to grasp the gravity of the failure of what Whoopi just did. She threw everybody under the bus to keep her view spot, and she don't even know she's so tied up into it. Her name Whoopi. I don't know if she changed her legal name, but I just know that you get to the point, you just Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, we were born into her name being Whoopi Goldberg. This is, what is it, Claire Elaine? You Karen Elaine Johnson. Committed generational plunder, pillaging the nation's economy, reportedly cutting their own taxes. Gave you example with property tax, financing 2 wars with deficit, ignoring climate change, presiding over the death of America's manufacturing core, NAFTA, allowing the jobs to be sent out, even immigration policy, when you tie that in, just a horrible job all the way around on keeping space for your children. And then you just look at us and talk about we failing. I mean, even Obama with Uber and gig jobs. I spoke to Gibney about these claims and why he thinks the baby boomers have wrecked America, a lightly edited transcript of our conversation. This isn't the full transcript. Go read the article on Vox, how the baby boomers, not millennials, screwed America. Who are the baby boomers? The baby boomers are conveniently defined as people born between 1946 and 64. But I focus on the first 2/3 of boomers because their experiences are pretty homogeneous, meaning the later boomers are excluded. The baby boomers, he's focusing on the earlier ones. They were raised after the war and so have no real experience of trauma or the Great Depression or even any deprivation. So I think that that's another thing that's in the undertone of what she's trying to do. She don't know, man. She's a dropout, 9th grade. So she's giving you a trauma that happened to her grandmama or her mama and telling you because she's talking real fast like 3-card Monty. Let me read it again so you understand, because a lot of you guys are getting tricked by people that are like 65 and 70, like they were marching in with King and they was like 6. The baby boomers are conveniently defined as people born between 46 and 64, but I focus on the first 2/3 of boomers because their experiences are pretty homogeneous. They were raised after the war and so have no real experience of trauma or the Great Depression or if any deprivation at all. So they were in the go-go 70s. So you thinking that they was marching at lunch counters in the late 50s because it all looked the same to you, but they was partying in the 70s, in 77 and 78, out there go-go dancing. Talk about it. More importantly, they never experienced the social solidarity that unfolded during wartime and that helped produce the the New Deal. So they were beneficiaries of the New Deal, not creators of it. They were beneficiaries of labor policy, not creators of it. So when Obama comes around and gives them gig jobs, no one marches. This is the importance of understanding what you're talking about. But it's really the white middle class boomer. So when she gives her message, she is speaking for a particular chord of white, stable, middle class boomers that don't want to hear nothing but they worked hard. No, you worked 8 hours a day at a factory and you ended up with a $700,000 home. Shut up. This is Tone Talks. How you doing? Give me your name. Where you calling from?
What's good, Tone? This is Trayvon from Baltimore.
What up, Trayvon? Give me your take.
Man, it's just, I got a lot to say, but I'm going to keep it short. It goes back to what you were saying before about how people just don't know who they are in America. And when you try to tell them this shit, it's just like, it's like an immediate mental barrier that comes up. And it's just rationalized like, oh, well, black people, we all been going through this. Like, it's always been like this. It's like, but when you want it to stop? Like, I just don't know. Like, it just seems like every time we start to get into nuance, there's always an immediate, knee-jerk reaction to that fact. Mm-hmm. And we can't ever progress, especially with people like Whoopi, and you get paid to basically be a barrier. It's like, that's the ultimate form of, of treachery. But, yeah, that's
Wait. I'm gonna ask you. I want to ask you a question before you leave. You still there?
Yep, still there.
So, what do you think about her dropping out in 9th grade and missing all of high school, and she's speaking on U.S. history and civics?
I think it's part of the course now. Like with boomers, I think it's part of the course. Like they really don't know, and a good portion of them don't want to know. So now that's just another factor. That's another group of people that we have to box out politically. Sadly, our own parents.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you gotta look. You can't have your grandma watching Maury Povich, watching all the little soap operas, watching The View, and then y'all get down and talk about Tone Talk. She ain't gonna want to hear that shit. She been chilling.
That's usually how it goes.
So I'm just putting it out there. Maury Povich and all that. What's the Jerry Springer? That's trash TV. The court show TVs. That's trash TV. I need your grandmamas doing the goddamn work and during their retirement, sitting down, reading James Baldwin, reading W.B. Du Bois. I need them to be sitting, going over to the city council, pulling for you because they might not be here next year or 5 years from now, and start thinking about what they're going to leave behind, even without no wealth. Can we talk? And if they're not doing that, what we doing? Any last thing you want to say to the audience? Price is Right.
Yeah, I want to say that it feels like we alone, but we together in this. There's community in this. No matter how often you get blocked and, they try to box you out on this and try to undermine your intelligence and all this, just know that we've made a lot of strides in the past 5 years. It's only going to get better from here. Love y'all.
Thank you so much, man. Great call. We having a discussion to build because somebody threw a rock at us. So don't throw a rock at me, Whoopi Goldberg, with your little 9th grade hands and be mad when I turn around with a bazooka. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Philly, I think that the problem that we actually have with people like Whoopi is I'm going to make an honest assessment, and I know that you and the rest you guys have to tell what you guys say a little bit due to liability concerns. She's a delusional liar. She's a liar. She has no connection to any working class millennial. She did not bust her behind when she was younger. If she would have bust her behind, she would have went further than the 9th grade. The people that's busting their behinds are the people that's going to college with these student loans, unsure of how they're going to pay off those student loans, but still taking the time to put in that effort to study, to learn, to pass those classes, even though they have an uncertain job future. Those people are busting their behind. Those children that are in college well, not children, but those young adults that are in college, struggling, not sure what their future is going to bring, but still doing the best they can to get an education so that they can have something to fall back on. They are actually busting their behind staying up all night.
And also they cut the floor out. They cut the floor out. So you can't even go for unemployment in some of these states without them telling you, go drive Uber. It's something out there. Well, I don't want to liquidate my car. Well, that's a job. You just got to figure that out. I need to ask you something, though. Let me ask you something. What do you think about this woman, Karen Elaine Johnson, changing her name based on the pretense of naming herself after a whoopee cushion, first name, and then second, Whoopi's mother thought that a Jewish surname would go further in Hollywood, so she took the Adolph Johnson off and added Goldberg. What do you think about that?
It speaks to her delusional thinking. Like, even when she said she bust her butt and all that, she actually was born in a time where she could drop out of school and actually had a pathway to believe that she had a pathway to success through entertainment. Prior to, like you said, those early boomers, that pathway didn't exist. If you were a black entertainer, you had to come up organically through the children's circuit. She actually came up by manipulating
just like Oprah.
Her name.
Just like Oprah, right? And I'm not saying she manipulated her name, but the same thing. Playing to a white audience and giving them the message that usually came through white men through a black face, and it ended up cutting out the voice of black politics across this nation. And I don't know what she stands for.
The fact that pathway even existed, the fact that she actually could sit down with her mom and say, listen, I dropped out of school, I'm not going to even try to get a job. I'm going to try and do a one-woman show. But her mother was able to support her and not say, yo, you're crazy. Black women don't do one-woman shows on Broadway. That's impossible. The fact that even was a viable belief for her.
And the fact that she had to change her name to Goldberg to make that happen. Give me your last take on this.
And that she knew. Well, the fact that she knew that she could manipulate change. Again, I just think that she's, again, I'm a nobody, I'm anonymous, so I can say this. I think that she's a liar, and I think that she's delusional.
All right, man. Let me let you go. I got a full queue of people want to let their frustrations out. I totally understand. And tell me about how lazy I am with a high school education or less. Despite her success, Goldberg told the graduates they had done something she didn't. School was not for me, she said, explaining she is dyslexic and is a 9th grade dropout. But it's really the white middle class boomer who exemplify all the awful characteristics and behaviors that have defined this generation. They became a majority of the electorate in the early 80s, and they fully consolidated their power in Washington by January 1995, the prime of Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Cushion Goldberg, because I need that name, because then I could be the face of them selling it to everybody that all the blacks are on board too. And they've basically been in charge ever since. So how have they broken the country? Well, the damage done to the social fabric is pretty self-evident. Just look around. Come on. There's a level to this, bro. We ain't here just to call her a 9th grade dropout. We're here to show what the consequences are and how it shows up in her lack of comprehension. For those people that are new to the show, again, my name is Antonio Moore. I'm a licensed attorney here in California. I was a prosecutor now. I've been doing defense law for 10, 15 years. I was nominated for an Emmy on a documentary called Freeway Cracking the System that talked about and got the Nicaraguans on camera talking about the Iran-Contra. There's levels to this. So don't bring up nothing, no nonsense. For those people that don't know. Well, the damage done to the social fabric is pretty self-evident. Just look around and notice what's been done. On the economic front, the damage is equally obvious, and it trickles down to all sorts of other social phenomena. I don't want to get bogged down in the ocean of numbers and data here. I did that for him. But think of it this way. I'm 41, and when I was born, the gross debt to GDP was about 35%. It's roughly 100% now. So they mortgaged America to keep the retirements. They mortgaged America to not pay the property tax. They mortgaged America to keep their houses while giving us none. What are you saying, Tone? Well, this person did a video today. And in that video, she was talking about how furious millennials are with rent. Well, somebody broke it down even further. And I'm going to come to the callers in a second before I get out of here. She is absolutely right. Boomers and Gen X have NIMBY'd. I'm going to come to you. Don't hang up. I'm going to come to you, caller. Don't hang up. She is absolutely right. Boomers and Gen X have NIMBY'd future generations out of places to live. LA went from zoned for 10 million to zoned for 4 million in the 70s. What is NIMBY? Well, NIMBY is not in my backyard. It is a way to keep people out. So there's policy to keep immigrants out. There's policy to keep blacks out. Well, there's a set of policy to keep young people out. And we don't even know. LA went from zoned for 10 million to 4 million in the 70s. Almost every city in America did something similar with the intention to keep out poor people and incidentally young people. And I don't like people of color, black people. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Shanice, and I'm from Oakland, East Oakland, California.
Give me your take on it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, give me your take on it.
Well, this is a lot. I think our parents, they did not set up any types of fight for any types of rights or laws to put in. We should no longer be dealing with like redlining. We should be able to go to these colleges. Right. It just seems like we have been pushed back so much. We have been pushed back. We've been dumbed down. We have allowed our entertainers to dumb us down. We have allowed our school systems to dumb us down. And we're just, I don't know. I can't seem to figure it out now. We have so much information at our fingertips now. No one should be in the dark about anything, especially an American descendant of slaves.
Come on.
No one should be in the dark right now. We just have too many distractions out here. We have a lot going on to distract us also, too. And Whoopi is one of them.
Come on.
Many of them out here distracting us and blocking us and keeping us from moving forward. Our children, the brother that was talking about children crying and has not, about having all of these jobs, all these jobs are held by our children. They're working more and they're working longer and harder, picking up 2, 3, maybe 4 jobs. Our children have hustles on the side too.
Yeah.
And they should not have to do that. They're killing our children.
Mm-hmm.
They're killing our children because the doors that have been opened now, they're not for us. They're for legal and illegal immigrants. And a lot of people don't realize that we are being invaded now. Now we're being invaded. We're basically being invaded. They have immigrants coming over here with $3,000 on a credit card. And I don't know if they're giving them that monthly or weekly or bi-weekly, but these are things that we should know. And these are things that we should be preparing our children for. Our parents did drop that ball. They dropped that ball and left us to pick up.
And the biggest example, and the biggest example of that is Barack Obama. I remember telling people he's Kenyan and white, and they was looking at me like they didn't understand that they're ADOS, and they didn't. I don't know how you a full American citizen person, and you don't know that you're not the same as a Kenyan person that just got here in 1988. You didn't have no history here, but nonetheless, let me get back to focusing. Let me ask you one last question. I'm gonna let you go on this note.
Yeah.
What do you think about Whoopi speaking to civics and American history with the 9th grade education?
I think Whoopi should keep her mouth closed. Someone that is skilled and educated should be speaking for us, and we should say something about that also too, like you're saying something about it. And can I say one last thing too? I knew Obama was going to do that to us. I told my parents, I asked my parents. I said, "Where do you know him from?"
Come on.
And they couldn't answer that question. I asked many people, adults and people that went to that poll and made me go to that poll. I said, "Where do you know him from?" And even for people who go to church and read the Bible, know the Bible, our prophets will be grown up amongst us. They treated him like a prophet, and he was not grown up amongst us.
Come on. Well, nonetheless, caller, you did a great job. I'm gonna let you go because I got.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for calling in and for taking your Sunday.
Much. And thank you for all your hard work. Thank you. I really appreciate you. Okay? I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
So I'm going to take one last call for the day on this topic. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Sarah from Tampa.
Go ahead. The floor is yours.
I want to say a few things. So, this is really sad because it makes me just imagine my grandmother listening, because that's what she does all day, right? Watches TV, like you mentioned, the judge shows and The View and all that. And right when Whoopi said that, I could hear her voice saying, exactly, yeah, they're lazy. They don't do anything. And it just makes me think about how disconnected that generation is. Even when I ask sometimes when I have time with my grandmother, I sit down and ask her, so you don't remember when Malcolm X died or Martin Luther King died, or what happened? Like, what were y'all doing? What was going on in the community? They never have anything educated or intellectual to say.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? I want you to listen to this one more time and just give me your automatic reaction and play it one last time. This is Whoopi Goldberg on the
Millennials and Gen Z have a much different view of the American dream than past generations. Data shows that soaring inflation, student debt, and limited room for advancement in the workplace has made them feel that milestones like affording a home, starting a family, excelling within the corporate structure are out of reach. Does every generation feel this way at some point? I say yes. Every generation comes and wants to do better than their parents did. Every generation. But I'm sorry, if you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house.
Give me your take right off the top.
She should go and actually sit all day with a millennial and then come back on TV and say that we work 4 hours a day, that we want to only work 4 hours a day. Instead of sitting her ass on The View, talking whatever, ignorant nonsense, go and be with some millennials. Get out of your bubble, your Hollywood bubble, and go sit in some millennials' homes and see how much we work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller. I apologize if that brought emotional reaction. I can understand that was point of the show to give people an outlet, because this needs to be talked about. I wanted to frame this discussion. I'm not making fun of people who have dyslexia, but I am making clear that this woman admittedly dropped out of high school in 9th grade. So as a result, would have missed American history, civics, everything else. And then essentially went on to change her name to Whoopi from a whoopee cushion and to Goldberg because she wanted to get favor with Jewish producers and executives. And then in a sense, now speaking on the state of generational wealth with no understanding of generational wealth due to the aforementioned facts. This is Tone Talks. Please go to tonetalks.net. Subscribe, donate, and share. I wanted to hit this discussion because I did not understand what Whoopi was talking about at all. Thank you.